This is me after landing my first 5-figure gig. I'd finally hit the elusive number. Someone was willing to pay me 5 figures for my skills, both as a cinematographer and an editor. But to understand how I got to this point, we need to rewind a bit. About 10 years ago, I was on a train, then 2 buses to finally walk to my first ever job as a video editor. I was an intern. I was a sophomore in college when I began a full-time internship at a post-production house in Chicago. I had my very own desk where I spent almost every day editing. Okay, I should say learning to edit. It was in college that I first heard of the 10,000 hours rule, and at that point, that number seemed at least overwhelming and at most completely unattainable. I mean, come on, if you practice roughly 3 hours per day, it'll take you 10 years to reach 10,000 hours. This theory was popularized in Malcolm Gladwell's best-selling book, Outliers. He explains that an individual needs about 10,000 hours of concentrated practice to possess a world-class skill, that becoming excellent in your chosen field will take time and deliberate, intentional practice. There's a quote I love that I'm sure you've seen circling around the freelance world. It goes something like this: "You don't pay me for the 1 hour it took me to do that thing. You pay me for the 10,000 hours it took me to learn how to do that thing in 1 hour." And for me, those 10,000 hours started in Chicago at that internship. And there's one thing I remember that played a key role in my process: this keyboard. I remember just sitting at the desk, eyeing through all the keys on the keyboard, trying to find the shortcut I knew I needed, but couldn't for the life of me remember the name of. And I certainly did not want to ask my boss. I'm so grateful I had that tool when I was introduced to this skill. However, after those 6 months were up, I went back to school and edited on either my laptop or the desktops in the media center, and they didn't have those keyboards. Now, I learned a ton in those years. Practice will take you wherever you want to go, but there's this thing called the frustration barrier. Feeling stupid right at the start of learning something new creates a barrier to us actually sitting down and doing the work. Now for me, at that internship, I didn't have a choice. It was a unique situation where I was at a job for a skill I was just learning. But ever since then, and probably for many of you, learning video editing and storytelling has been a skill that has only been enforced by ourselves. No one was looking over my shoulder to make sure I was practicing in the last 9 years, to make sure I was implementing new techniques and pushing the boundaries. And that frustration barrier gets in the way of progress. So we want to make the process as smooth as possible where we can, limit the friction to starting. Because editing is problem solving, it's creative and strategic thinking. There are so many elements that make this a complex skill. But while the 10,000 hour rule makes total sense to me, and I believe there's a lot of truth to it, we can't forget Gladwell's original intent, that the theory is about mastery, expertise. It doesn't apply to simply knowing how to do something well enough. The rule may not apply to much of what we're trying to accomplish in our lives. For instance, right now, I'm running 1 mile per day for a month. I'm not trying to become an Olympic runner. I'm trying to build a habit and get my time under 9 minutes. It's that simple. And with all the free information on the internet, we have access to efficient learning and something called micro-mastery. Perhaps to make or do something that's good enough, we don't need to spend 10,000 hours practicing. It doesn't mean we spend 0 hours practicing, but somewhere in between. And what we do need to look for are the things called entry tips, things that the masters know that will immediately allow us to level up. And to me, after using it for the past 3 months, this keyboard limits friction in the editing process. There are a ton of entry tips for video editing, and a lot of them live on this keyboard right in front of your face, easy access whenever you need it, instead of having to search Google to find that one shortcut. And if you combine this keyboard with YouTube tutorials that teach you techniques instead of shortcuts, that is deadly. Even though this video is sponsored by the company that sent me this keyboard, I can promise you this will be the only one I use from now on. The simple reminder that I could listen to footage at double speed while I'm editing a podcast has given me so much time back in that workflow alone. And the less time we spend doing things with this mouse, the more time we can spend learning and implementing a new skill into each video. Now, I'm not saying this keyboard will make you a master editor. What I am saying is that it will remind you of the shortcuts or what's available to help your time practicing be more efficient and deliberate. It will help you get through every edit faster and bring you closer to that goal of expertise. Because if there's something you want to master, if you're really committed, 10,000 hours is nothing. Because it's not about how long it takes you to get there, it's about who you become along the way, how skilled you become, and how valuable you become to those you serve. And much like the 10,000 hours, 5 figures for one video job used to seem completely unattainable, but everything seems impossible until you do it. Thanks so much for watching. You'll find a link to the keyboards in the description. I cannot recommend these keyboards enough. I'd love to know something you're excited to be learning right now. How many hours of practice do you have so far? Let me know in the comments, or send me a DM over on Instagram. I'm always active over there. I try to answer all of your DMs. And if you made it this far, go ahead and do those 2 things we all know help the algorithm. All right, cool. Thank you. It helps so much. And just for you, I put together this playlist I think you're really gonna enjoy if you're a personal development junkie like I am. I'll see you in the next one.